Okay, so good afternoon, friends. My name is Shailesh Saraf. Just a brief introduction about myself. I am a managing director of Dynamic Equities Private Limited. I've been there in the market since 1992. We became members of National Stock Exchange in 1999. And from last 16 years, we are members of National Stock Exchange, Bombay Stock Exchange, and I've been doing research. So today, thank you for joining this session. I would like to share some of our views for the good stock or multi-baggers for 2017. This is part 2 of our session. Last week we had done a session on multi-baggers. So we'll just do a brief overview for about 5 minutes what we covered last week, so the new people know what we covered last week. Okay, and thank you, Pushkar. The part 1 is also available on YouTube, so you can see the part 1 in YouTube. And what we covered last week was, as we said, in dynamic levels, we follow a unique system for identifying multi-bagger stocks. Now, what is a multi-bagger? A multi-bagger stock which gives you a return of more than 50 or 100% in a year. Okay, that is called multi-bagger. Now, for us, we have identified it very clearly. So if the index have performed 50%, then we only consider those stocks as multi-baggers which have performed more than 50% in that given period of time. Okay, now for a raise of hands, is my voice clear? If I can say yes, you can say. A raise of hands from everyone. Is my voice clear? Can you hear me properly? Thank you, Mr. Sandeep, Mr. Said, Mr. Srini. So my voice is clear? Okay, thank you so much. So we'll move ahead. So just about how do we do it? We have about 1659 stocks listed in NSE. These are active stocks, out of which 617 shares have outperformed more than 55%. So basically about 1000 shares had underperformed, compared to the index. So we do research on those shares which has risen. Okay. Now out of that 617, only 1471 cash stocks have volume. Now again, we are not referring to, this research is not about the 175 stocks which is in the futures market. Okay, out of this 417 stocks, we have identified 117 fundamentally good stocks where you should put your money. Okay, so this was a brief introduction which we did last time. Okay, so just the top performing sectors, we had taken a time frame from 12th February to 1st November in which the index had moved more than 55%. Now, FMCG sugar has moved more than 136%. It is also very important that you should know that which sector is outperforming in the markets. So sugar, chemicals, metals and mining, paper, infra machinery, fertilizers, FMCG packaging, auto shares, cements. If you see, many sectors have outperformed. So if you have a greater understanding of which sector is performing, then you should invest in that sector which are the good fundamental stocks. We had covered that last year, so I'm not going in detail. Now, last month we said sugar has performed, rallied by more than 36%. We had covered sugar last week. So out sugar, Dwarkesh, Dhampur sugar, Dalmia sugar, EID Parry, Triveni, Balrampur. If you see that the stocks have performed, so obviously out sugar has moved more than 239%. And still if you see, the P ratio is only 3. That means it has still a huge potential to rise even in 2017. Sugar stocks are doing extremely well. Recently also, after demonetization, And even after in December, we are seeing that the sugar stocks are doing very, very well. So these were the shares, Out Sugar, Dwarkesh. Last week somebody had answered, right, that why not Balrampur Chini? Balrampur Chini is also a good stock, but compared to the other stocks have moved higher. So these are the 7 stocks which we recommend in sugar. We're just doing a brief from the last week. Okay. So why invest in the sugar sector? These are some of the areas. India is the largest producer of sugar in the world after Brazil. India has total 17% market share in world production, and the government has taken lots of measures in the last 1 year to revive the sugar industry. Okay, 16th April 2015, Bharat Mehta, Chief Executive Officer, Dalmia Sugar, reforms specially linking the cane price with that of the final product is necessary. Full decontrol of sugar, taking states on board. Okay, the government announced 6,000 crore interest-free loan to sugar mills so that they could
pay canes
arrears to farmers. This measure has so far helped sugar industry to do well. Again on 19th November, in a major decision aimed at giving some relief to sugarcane, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, decided to pay a production-linked subsidy of 4.50 quintal directly to cane farmers. Today, the stock price is trading at 160. Dalmia Sugar. If you see, the prices were 18, 26, and 70. So these were some of the measures why the sugar industry went up. Another report by ICRA, domestic sugar production of about 25 million metric tons during the year 2016, a decline of 10% over the previous year. This decline in sugar stock is a positive and has resulted in improvement in domestic sugar realization since August 2015. Okay, so please read the report on ICRA. You'll have a greater understanding. So Dwarkesh Sugar says the central government has thus displayed commendable elasticity in bailing the sugar industry out of the woods. Now, why we are discussing this is, if you really want to invest in a particular sector, you have to know that you need to study the guidance and what does the company talk about the industry. So many people don't read, we read the annual report, sometimes we read the profit margins. What we should do is, we should also read what the company is talking about the industry. So if you find a very similar trend, that all the sugar companies are very bullish about the industry, and then also you see the prices are going up, and then you also see the balance sheet doing well, then you know that you've identified great multi-baggers. Okay, so these are some of the things what the Triveni management says, the Dalmia Sugar management says, the Dhampur Sugar says. So these are some of the things which you should regularly refer. Rather than getting information from people outside, you should do your own study, which will help you to take better decisions. Okay, the second sector we covered last week was chemical sector. Again, so there were certain fantastic scrapes, Tirumalai, Sudarshan, Philips Carbon, Bodal, Gujarat Alkali, and we had also covered the reasons. Now the number one reason, as I said last week, was when the crude oil prices go down, okay, the raw material of the chemical companies is crude oil. So when the crude oil prices go down, it has a tendency for the chemical industry to do well, the profitability increases. Now if you see, from June 2016 to February 2016, chemical sector rose 46%, where the benchmark index remained flat at 7240. Okay, so
sorry, this is June 2014.
Okay, there's a small correction. This is June 2014. Okay, why we are discussing this? If you see this chart, can you see here? This is June 2014, right? There was a big fall in crude prices from $91 to $51. $40 went down. The Indian index was, in that same period, the Indian index did not move up, but the chemical sector rose by 46%. So you should have, again, we are giving you where you should focus, where you should do your study. You should have a greater understanding that which raw material moves a particular industry. Okay, now if you see last year, crude oil prices hit $26 in February. That is why when the market started to go up from 12th February, chemical sector performed the best. It rose by 118% because crude oil prices were pretty down. Even right now also, if you see crude oil prices on top was about $115, okay, $110 to $15, and it went down to $26, and presently it is $50. So still the chemical industry is having a great run because crude oil prices are still very down. Now when you see the crude oil prices going up $62, touching $75, then you have to be careful in the chemical industry because the next quarterly results will be affected. Number one. Number two, usually January and February is not a very good time to invest in chemical stocks. Why? Because crude oil tends to go up. In the last 15 years, according to a study, crude oil has gone up 13 times in the month of February. So we just have to be careful. If the crude oil gives a breakout of $62 and tries to go to $75, the chemical sector will have an effect. But still, compared to the overall high prices, the chemical sector is still a very good buy, and we had given you the shares last week, so you can continue. Okay, let's move to the next sector. Let's move to the next sector, which was we covered last week. Okay, metals. Okay, the metal sector rose by 111% between February to November. Which are the good stocks? Again, Tata Midlatech, GMDC, Rain, Maharashtra Seamless, Tata. So what we have tried to do is, in every sector, we are giving you about 7 to 10 stocks to invest in. Well, you must be coming from maybe a certain sector, you must be having a business of certain things, you must be maybe working in that sector. So you should know that which companies are doing well in which sector and which is the raw material which affects this sector. So this basic knowledge will really help you. Okay, so the government of India, again we have to, what is the government doing to help that certain sector? So when the certain sector is in depression, is in recession, when most of the companies are losing money, usually the government comes out with some benefits to that sector. And when the government comes out, like for the sugar industry, when the government came out with decontrolling, the sugar industry went up. The sugar industry has not been performing for many, many years. But in the last 1.5 to 2 years, it has performed tremendously. So that is a very important, and these things, sometimes it is very difficult to know. So these things are usually mentioned in the annual report of people. So what is the government thinking about that sector? Okay, so the overall, the government of India has allowed 100% foreign direct investment in the mining sector under the automatic route. Mining lease has been granted for a long duration. So these are some of the benefits which was done in the Minerals Development and Regulation Act 2011. So by doing this, the metal sector and it is going up. Okay, Mr. Pushkar, we'll all take all the questions at 4:10. So please wait till 4:10. We'll give you 20 minutes to answer all your questions. Let us just complete the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Pushkar. Okay, so the metal sector, these are the shares. Now, why invest in metal sector? The domestic iron ore prices remains more or less stable. Now, metal sector, the raw material is iron ore and coke. Look, iron ore and coke. So when these raw materials are pretty low or stable, the profitability of the metal sector keeps going up. We had covered these last week. So these are some of the reasons why we should invest in the metal sector. Okay. The paper sector, last week, West Coast paper, JK paper, because the prices of pulp have been lower. Okay. And also the the prices have been pretty stable for paper pulp. That is why the paper stocks have been doing very well. So these were, if you see the pulp thing, the pulp prices are pretty down from about 700. It has gone to about 500. So it is great profitable for the company, for the paper companies. Okay, Mr. Raj Nandi, everybody can hear my voice, so you have to check your own computer or your speakers because everybody can hear me. Again, a raise of hands. Everybody can hear me, please. Okay, thank you, Mr. Raj. Okay, so let's now discuss another sector which we did not discuss last week, which is infra. Okay, so infrastructure is it had rallied by about 103%. So these are some of the shares. Like NB Ventures went up by 140%, right? Again, we'll briefly tell you about this. If you see the total institutions, total institution means the mutual funds, the foreign institutions, everybody has been investing. So there are 54 institutions who have invested in NB Ventures. Now, this is a very critical thing to know. When you don't have institutions investing in a particular stock, that means maybe the fundamentals of those companies are not good. So we always give you a list that how many institutions have invested in a particular stock. Now, 1 or 2 institutions can be fooled, but 54 institutions, they invest a lot on the fundamentals, they do a lot of study. So if 54 or 100 companies, 100 mutual funds have invested in a particular stock, okay, that means that company is pretty safe for investment. Now, this is a very critical knowledge you should have. Do not invest in companies where there is no mutual fund or institution or foreign institution investment. Okay, so this will prevent you from investing into companies where the prices are going up, but actually the fundamentals, the profitability of the companies is not there. So this is very, very important. Okay, another thing is the P ratio. Please don't invest in companies which have high P, maybe above 40. You know, we prefer not to invest in those stocks. We have kept, there are certain sectors like FMCG, pharma, which has a high P ratio of 50. But please don't invest above 50. That means the earning is not equal to the price of the share. The price is expensive related to the earnings, right? So if you check, the P ratio of these companies, the P ratio is pretty good. So you can invest. NB Ventures is a very good share. And another thing you have to check is where a lot of damage is done, where you can know the internal state. Sometimes a company may show profitability, right? But actually it is a fictitious profit. So how do you know the company has no debts? You have to check the debt. You have to check the promoter's pledge. So if you check the promoter's pledge and if you check the debt of certain companies, we usually keep the debt ratio less than 3.
Less than 3.
Okay, just put the debt ratio for next week. So we usually keep the debt ratio less than 3. Okay, and also if you see the promoter's pledge, except for Kalputri Power, most of the companies, they don't have pledge. So when the company has severe cash crunch, liquidity crisis, they have a tendency to pledge their own shares. So by this, we know that the company has liquidity problems. So when they are not pledged their own shares, that means those companies are pretty solid fundamentally and they are profitable companies. Also, we have to check that those companies have a very strong dividend yield, practice. If the companies are not paying dividend, that means something's wrong. And also the market cap, right? So we have identified these wonderful shares in infrastructure, NB Ventures, which is in infra power, then Fin Cables, infra telecom, Vesuvius, infra machinery equipment, AIG engineering, okay, then LG equipment, Kalputru Power, Apla Apollo, and KNR construction. So these are some of the good multi-bagger stocks in infrastructure. Right now, we have seen Mr. Modi really emphasizing to put a lot of thing on infrastructure, right? Creating of power, so once you have such industries coming in, then there is a requirement for machinery. So these companies that have done well, it has risen by 103%, and these are great companies where you can put your money. Okay. Now, what does APL Apollo talk about? With the construction market booming and further development of new market of steel pipes ranging from commercial framing to water pipe, the future of the steel tube industry is likely to experience considerable growth. Okay, so this is by APL. It is into infrastructure. So more steel, there is a demand. So these companies will do well, right? We'll go to the next sector, which is the fertilizer sector, which had grown by 96%, 97%. Last week we had covered. Now fertilizers are doing very well even after demonetization. It is doing considerably well. So these 4 shares are doing very well. Okay. Now what can be the possible reason? The fertilizer industry is characterized by high dependence on government policies with respect to subsidy and control. Historically, fertilizer sector has not been able to attract due to regulated return on investment through subsidy and price control. Now we know that this government is really trying to the money reaches the farmers. Previously, most of the money was not even reaching the farmers, it was used in corruption. So even the farmers could not buy fertilizer, and most of the subsidy was being eaten by the politicians. Now many money is reaching the farmers because of the Aadhaar card. So because their money is reaching, they are buying fertilizer for the agricultural growth. Okay, so you really have to study. Another thing is which is the raw material for fertilizer. It is natural gas. Okay, natural gas pooling mechanism of domestic gas with regasified LNG to provide feedstock at uniform delivered price of urea manufacturing has been a welcome step. In order to improve coverage and scope of crop insurance, Fasal Bima Yojana was announced during the year that has helped the sector a lot. Now these things by the government has helped the farmers a lot. So they have been able to grow their businesses, so they can buy more fertilizers, subsidies is easier. So that is why the fertilizer stocks are doing extremely well. Even after demonetization, this fertilizer sector is doing very well. So please invest these 4 shares. Again, if you check, the P ratio is still very, very low. So it has a potential to rise in a big way, in even 2017. Okay, the market capitalization is strong. They have great profitability. So, zero pledge. Fantastic companies. So, if you see GNFC had given a return of 349% in 1 year. Can you imagine if you had invested in GNFC? Okay, so this is a fantastic sector to invest. Please have a focus on this. Let's go to the next sector, which is the FMCG packaging. Okay, it has gone up by 88%. Now shares like Time Techno, Uflex, Cosmo Film, SL Packaging. Again, the raw material, this RM is raw materials. It's also related to crude oil. Because the crude oil prices have been down, so these stocks have been doing pretty well. Okay. So also if you see the FMCG, packaging sector rose 106% and the crude oil fell by about 76%. So there is a direct correlation with crude oil, this packaging industry. Now these are great shares. Again, I repeat, Time Techno, Uflex, Cosmo Film and SL Packaging. Major fluctuation occurs in the raw material prices due to crude oil price level as well as the demand and supply position. The increase and decrease in crude oil directly impacts the price of polypropylene. Lower crude oil lead in lower propylene prices, thereby reducing our working capital. So the company says the crude oil prices are low. That is why if you observe, every time when the crude oil prices are very, very high, there is a big concern, because once the crude oil prices are very, very high, okay, there is a tendency to be scared that because certain sectors don't perform, especially the chemical and the packaging. Okay, we'll take the question, Mr. Raj, Mr. Deepak, Mr. Chandrasekhar. We'll take all your questions at 4:10. Okay, so Uflex says flexible packaging has one of the fastest growing sectors in the pack over the last 10 years, thanks to the increased consumer focus on convenience and sustainability. According to market research, the global industrial packaging industry is estimated to reach $61 billion by 2020. It also expects demand from Asia to gain momentum and have a 34% share in global market. So India is one of the fastest growing countries in Asia. So if this sector will go, India will do very, very well, right? So great companies to invest in FMCG packaging. Okay, we had covered the auto sector last week. It has also risen by 83%. There is an auto sector, there are many shares. So auto sector is actually divided into three areas if you see. Automobiles and auto parts, auto ancillaries and components, and auto tires and tubes. So they have been all clubbed together. So there have been some great companies which has done fantastically, great fundamentals, Escorts, JB Moto, Okul Fuel, Rico Auto, Sundaram Fastener. We had covered it last week. Now the reason why invest in auto stocks, forecast of a normal monsoon are expected to have a positive influence on the auto and auto component industry, and the companies generate to take advantage of the increased demand. That's why monsoons are very important, you know. So if you have a positive monsoon, the auto industry does well. The raw material cost represents the largest expense head of the industry, with alloy steel and pig iron of the total material cost. Over the past preceding 3 years, the prices of iron, alloy and rubber have been volatile. Any further insight? So basically, if you observe, you know, the prices have been pretty okay. So the auto sector is doing. Now if these prices go up drastically, again it's going to affect the profitability. JB Moto says the government of India under the Make in India scheme is trying to give boost to the contribution made by the manufacturing sector and aims it to touch 25% of GDP. A stable government framework, increased purchasing power, large domestic market, and an ever-increasing development in infrastructure have made India a favorable destination. Okay, so these are, you know, I agree, Mr. Deepak. We are just, because we have a lot of new users, we are just going. We'll go to a new sector, Mr. Deepak. We have not covered cement last week. Is it okay? Okay, let's cover cement. Let's cover cement. We have covered new 3 sectors actually. So let's cover cement. Okay, cement, Birla Corporation, JK Cement, JK Lakshmi, Ramco Cement and Shree Cement. So these have been, you know, great shares in the cement industry. So please take a note. You can also read what the managements of JK Cements, Birla Corporation, Shree Cement shares. So have a note of these shares. These were not discussed last week. These are new shares. Okay. Why not ACC and Ambuja? Okay. They are in the futures market. We are only covering the cash market here. We are only covering the cash market, and we have seen that the cash market has a tendency to do very well. Can we know how much ACC and Ambuja have increased in last 7 months? I'll tell you. We have the data. Okay. So cement industry, these are good shares to invest. Birla Corporation has done very well, 142%. JK Cement, 128%. These have very low promoters pledge. So it's a great sector to invest. So if you're interested in the cement industry, you'll do this. You can invest. Another industry which we did not cover last week was Realty Household Multibagger list. Ramco Industry, it's in Realty Household. It has done very well. It has risen by 210%. Okay. Mr. Ashok Date, Dalmia, I'll take the question, but Dalmia Bharat has a very high P ratio. The P ratio is more than 50. So let's invest into certain things which has a high upside. So if you check, there was a sharp correction in Dalmia Bharat from about 1700, 1800 levels to 200 levels because the P ratio is very, very high. You just have to be careful with high P ratio, Mr. Ashok. Okay, that's why it is not in our shape, because we have to identify those scripts which still has an upside in 2017. So personally, I feel Dalmia Bharat can be a dangerous share because of the high P ratio. Okay, so Ramco Industry, Surya Roshni, Greenply, Nilkamal, Somani Ceramics, Century Ply, Blue Star, VIP, Lloyd Engineering, Bajaj Electric. These are great shares which have been doing very well. Now Bajaj Electric, it is expected that the market size of Indian LED industry may touch 21,600 crores by 2020 on the back of government decision to switch to LED. Now, because of the new electricity area, what Piyush Goyal is doing, the way LED is coming very, very importantly. Okay, so that is why we have to really okay, so LED industry is doing very well. I hope you've also changed your lights in your house. LED saves a lot of electricity. So LED is a good space. So Bajaj Electric is a good share to invest because it is in a huge way in this. So you have to invest in these scripts. Another script which we want to cover is the jewelry sector. You must be knowing Manappuram and Muthoot Finance have been in the news recently. I don't know if you are aware, Muthoot Finance and Manappuram have more than 150 or 200 tons of gold. So what they do, they take your gold and they give you loan against gold. So this is actually a financial company who takes gold and gives you loan on that. So they have 150,000 tons of gold in there, which is more than many, many countries. So if you go to Times of India or Google, you just put Manappuram and Muthoot Finance, you'll be surprised that these shares, are doing very well. Now this is highly correlated with gold. Okay, gold prices have been going up in the last 6-7 months. It went from about $1,100 to about $1,400. So because of that run, their business really shot up. They were able to do. So if you see from budget, Manappuram has risen by 295%. So if you have a great idea of gold, okay, and if gold prices are stable or is going up, then the chances are that these shares will outperform. Okay, so have a good look at Manappuram and Muthoot Finance. So it is a fantastic company to invest in. Okay, another sector which we did not cover last week was textile. Okay, so textile, great sector. Again, Nahar Industries, I don't know if you've heard of the stock, has gone up by 82%. Hemant Singha Seed, KPR Mill, Raymond and Trident. Okay, now textile and apparel specifically, domestic consumption has grown at over 13% per annum over the last 5 years, fueled by the demographic advantages of India's population, increasing urbanization, growing disposable income, and higher marked penetration of organized retail. India's export of textiles and apparel has grown over 11% in the last 5 years. The Ministry of Textile is the process of redrafting new textile policy, which is likely to offer impetus to the industry to grow further. I'm not a big fan because you know who's the textile minister right now. So I'm not a very big fan of her, the textile minister. Let's see if she does well. I hope you know, right? क्योंकि सास भी कभी बहू थी. Smriti Irani, so she is the textile minister right now. She was shifted from the education minister to a textile minister. So I'm not a big fan because she talks a lot, does less work. But these are some of the shares the textile is doing well. Okay. These are, Mr. Chandrasekhan, these shares can again rise because the P is still very, very less. Right? So you have to identify where the mutual funds are investing in those scripts. They don't invest for 3 months or 6 months. They have a long-term horizon of, 1 year or 2 years, right? So that is why we can still invest in these shares in 2017. Okay, so Textile, Nahar, Himatsinka, KPR Mills, Raymond and Trident. So what we are trying to do in each sector, you can invest. If you have a particular fancy about a sector, then you should know that from which sector we should invest in which shares. Okay. Now another thing is FMCG food. Now this can be a great sector because of GST, right? Because of GST, it can be a great sector. Because of GST, these shares, because GST, they might have zero tax in the food, right? So heritage food and quality are looking like a very, very good perspective. It had risen by 110 and 78% in the last year. Even in 2017, we can see, the P ratio is still not very high. Okay. We always will give you the shares where the P ratio is still very, very low. That means even if it has risen in last year, it can still rise in the current year. Okay. So it can rise in a big way also. FMCG food. Another sector which we did not cover last week is banks and NBFC. Now in the cash market, banks and NBFC shares, the Indian Bank, Lakshmi Vilas, okay, these are great shares to invest again. Now you check the NBFC, okay, Edelweiss, if you're aware, if they are doing really, really well, the share has risen by 180%. They have a great research desk. They do a lot of different activities. So it's a great company. GM Financial, Motilal Oswal, Canfin Home, Bajaj Finserv. Bajaj Finserv has been doing very well in the rural industry. They are one of the fastest growing companies. NBFC, which has been doing a lot of work in, all these companies get affected by the interest rate. So right now we have a great chance that the interest rate will keep falling. So if the interest rate will keep falling, these shares will continue to do well. And if you check the P ratio is still very, very low. So we can see still a big upside. Okay, big upside. So it's a great share to buy. Now you also know that how does the bank prices get affected? The bank prices get affected by the Indian bond prices. Now I don't know if you're aware, there is a future of the 10-year bond. You can actually start trading in the futures of 10-year bond. And you should also have a knowledge of the bond market, because when the F2s have a treatment, they also buy the bonds and they also buy the shares at the same time. Okay, so the bond prices have been doing very, very well. So that is why the banking sector has been doing very well. It is positively correlated. So more bank bonds are being bought, the more money comes in the banks, and the bank shares also have a huge go. So sometimes you should know about the knowledge of bond market, because it affects the bank prices a lot. Okay, the pharma sector, which we did not cover last week, Caplin Point, Jubilant, RPG Life, Piramal, Dishman, Shilpa Medical and Syngene. These are great stocks which has risen in the pharma sector, is also doing very well recently. Jubilant just made a new 52-week high recently. Okay, Caplin Point has made a new high. So all these shares have made all new highs. So we move further. Okay, so these are great shares. Pharma is a defensive. So whenever the markets have a tendency to go down, okay, these shares rise a lot. But I've seen that these shares have even risen when the market has been performing. So we have double advantage. It's a defensive sector. So whenever if the markets are going down, you can invest in these stocks also. Okay, so these companies are great. You should study these companies from the pharma sector. Okay, from the IT we had covered Geometric, Quick Hill and Larsen Infra. These are good shares in the IT. it gets affected with US dollars. Okay, energy sector. Chennai Petro has been doing very well even in the last 1 month. Okay, so please keep a note of Chennai Petro, Gulf Oil and MGL, Maharashtra Gas Limited. So these are great companies where you can think of investing in the energy sector. Okay, we are giving you all the different sectors. Why? Because you have a range and you can study about those sectors by studying these companies. Okay, the shares which have performed, again the sectors you have to keep after demonetization: the fertilizer, metals and mining, the sugar industry. The IT has been doing very well because of the rupee prices weakening. Whenever the rupee weakens, the IT does well. So these sectors have been doing well. So these are some of the very important shares, 117 shares, where you can invest your money in this year. You can also, if you have a particular fancy of about a particular sector, so we recommend you invest in those shares in that sector. Also very important, you have to learn to change. You have to learn that whenever you are invested, never put all your eggs in one share or one sector, right? You should always have investment in about 10 to 15 sectors, and you should try to pick up in those sectors only. Okay, so it is very, very important that because even if one sector does well, you can invest in other sectors. So please make sure that you do not put all your eggs in one basket. So one thing which you need to know, you need to do a portfolio analysis of your sectors, that which share you should hold, which share you should exit, which share can perform. So sometimes we have a fancy for a particular share, but those shares have not been performing for 6 months or a certain year, 1 year, 2 years. So make sure that you exit and you invest in the right share. So the reason we have given you a whole basket is that you should definitely do a study that which sectors and which shares are you invested in your portfolio. Okay, so we'll take some questions specifically from the sector. Let's take, if the crude oil prices go up, should oil and gas sector go up? Should oil, okay, Sahil, ONGC, where if the crude oil price will go up, ONGC will go up. But what will happen to Hindustan Petroleum and Bharat Petroleum? If the crude oil will go up, it will go down, because they said, so basically every raw material, certain shares go up and certain shares go down. So you should know that is the raw material positively correlated or negatively correlated with the raw material. Okay. Gaurav, what is your view on IOB, Indian Overseas Bank? Okay, I can only, what is that you want to know about Indian Overseas Bank, Mr. Gaurav? Now, particular sectors is very difficult to give an answer, particular stock, Sorry?
Category 10 है, December में 29% बढ़ा है और performance बहुत हुआ है negative.
It's a negative share. It's in what is the reason why it is in category 10 for IOB?
Results negative.
Results are negative for IOB. Okay, so that is why it is not a very good share. It has not been performing also for IOB. So there are other shares like Indian Bank. I would rather prefer to buy Indian Bank and other shares rather than buying IOB.
Budget में it is moved by 29%.
And in the entire budget, the index moved by 55%, but your share only moved by 29%.
No.
Okay, Kartikya Cement. We'll answer, Mr. Satya. We'll answer personal question on a personal shares also.
Kartikya Cement category 9 again fundamentally bad. Budget में reason है, but results are negative. June में in June quarter.
In June quarter, the results were negative. They were loss-making company in Kartikya. So please do not invest in companies where the results are negative, Mr. Satya.
Institutions are only 9.
Okay. Was removed from FNO. I have shares of SBI. Can I hold?
Negative 5.
Okay. So SBI is obviously it's a great company. So it will always do well. So you can definitely hold SBI always. You have to check whether the banking sector is doing well. Okay. Right now, if you observe, the banking sector profitability will be under question. Why? Because they have to reduce the interest rate. So if they have to reduce the interest rate, it affects their profitability.
In budget, it grows by 76%.
Okay, so that is one area which you have to check, Mr. Ananda. There are better sectors than banks right now, because every time when the interest will go down, it will affect the profitability of the banking shares. So presently there are other sectors which is better than the banking sector. So sector analysis is critical rather than having a fancy for a particular share. Okay, same thing for IDFC. Please check banking sector. I'm not a big favorite for banking sector for this year because they have to reduce the interest rates.
This is a good stock. Budget में 101% बढ़ा था.
Okay, next, any sector what do you think was not performed last year but will come as a surprise this year? Mr. Deepak, we have a keep close look. We keep on seeing every month which sectors are performing. So we keep updating this on our website. It's a continuous thing. So whenever we see a particular sector going up, we have a system automatically those shares come in our radar. Okay, it is also mentioned in dynamiclevels.com. So we keep a note. So if any new sector will come up, we will give you an update. What is your view on MM forging? Just check MM forging. MM forging. Or Avanti feed. Mr. Nilesh wants to know about Avanti feed. Just give me the details.
Avanti feeds category 8. Budget 54% movement.
Now, give me the fundamental reason why it is in category 8. Avanti feed again not a good fundamental stock. It has not moved. The price movement is also not very good. Okay, Mr. Sandeep Mathur, how do you find raw material correlation and sectors? Now, it is not an easy job to find it so easily. So you can search our website. We give a lot of details on our website about stocks. You can also send us a mail. We'll answer some queries.
No movement in budget.
Okay. Now, Kushal TradeLink is top performing in 2016. Does this continue? Kushal TradeLink, check it. Kushal, Kush, it has been performer. Why it is not in our list? Is it listed in NSE? We'll find out and send us a mail. We'll give you. If it is not in NSE, then we don't research. Okay, defense sector. What are we? We have 2-3 sectors. It is on my presentation. Just tell me the defense sector, which we have in a research. Defense sector has risen by 10%. Which shares have risen? He wants to know defense sector.
Defense sector, no performance in budget. Only one stock which has rose 56%. It is in category 9 because of negative pack.
With whatever shares, give me all the shares. Which are the best shares?
Best shares are Rolta, risen negative by 6% in budget. Centum 34%, positive. Axis Gate 45%.
Centum and Axis Gates. Axis Gates. So these are two shares. Rolta, Axis Gates, and
Rolta, Axis Gate, and Centum.
And Celtum. So these are 3 shares where so it has not been performing a lot. The defense sector has not been doing well. It has performed very least compared to the other sectors. So we are not keeping a track on this sector because it's not a very favorite sector for me right now.
Not performing.
Okay, best sector to keeping budget session coming. Very difficult to say because the budget will be a very renewed budget this time, Mr. Amit, Mr. Ankur. So it might have a new, if they do a lot of corporate tax cuts, we might see the entire market going up. I have given still my favorite sectors still remain is, sugar, chemicals, auto, and metals and mining. These are still my favorite sectors right now. Okay. IT can be very dangerous. We covered last week. IT can be very dangerous because of Trump and H1 visas. So we have to check. But if the rupee keeps on weakening, goes to 70, 71, the profitable of IT companies will rise. So presently it is performing because we can see that rupee might go up because of the interest rate rise in America. Okay, so if the Trump does not do anything wrong, then the IT companies might do well in 2017.
News conference today.
Okay, Astra Microwave.
Trump's news conference today at 11:50.
Today we have the Trump news conference at 11:30 p.m. India time. So please check the US markets and he might do something major. That is why our markets are also running on a bull trend. Next week, we are going to give you a presentation how to trade Nifty and Bank Nifty. Okay, so we'll give you the understanding that how to study open interest, what can you do intraday, and how you can understand that whether Nifty will go up or go down. So next week it's going to be a very interesting presentation on Nifty and Bank Nifty. Okay, so it will give you an understanding of the market.
No performance in budget. Astra Microwave. 13%.
Astra Micro has not been performing. It has only risen by 13%. Which category it is in?
Category 5. Having
So there's no performance of Astra Microwave, Mr. Balakiran. That means there is very less interest in this share. Okay, TechM is in futures.
no performance in budget. No
Tech Mahindra.
price performance.
Tech Mahindra.
Yes.
Okay, because IT sector has not been performing in the last 1 year, Tech Mahindra has not been performing. But after the demonetization, it is on the performance spree. So it's a after demonetization, it has performed pretty well. So it's a good share right now. If the IT does well, Tech Mahindra is a good share. Okay, Kirloskar Electric. Mr. Tahir Lane, you can still invest in the sugar sector because the PE of certain shares are still very, very low. So you can still invest in the sugar sector. Okay. When to invest, 25% whole plan, and best for you to see these things. When to invest is a golden question. It's a golden question, right? You cannot time the market, right? So if you invest in a particular share and if it's a good share, hold on. But right now, because of the Indian taxation scenario, demonetization, and Donald Trump coming in America, we have two scenarios. One will scare you and one will give you a new area to think. Okay? So which one you want to hear first? The bad scenario or the good scenario? Two things might happen. Okay? According to history, we had a major downfall in 92, 2000, 2008. So every 8 years, there is a whenever the government changes certain policies, we have seen that the markets crashes also. So we have completed 8 years. So if Donald Trump makes mistakes, he starts a war in the Middle East. Arun Jaitley does not increase taxes. China's president also creates problem. So we might see again a major crash in the stock market because we have a new president. Politically, also the markets get affected in a big way. Okay? Now that is the bad news. Again, I'm telling you, usually the markets have a tendency to correct 60%, the indexes. So if the market has been high at 10,000, you go and check history, 60% of 9,000 is how much? 5,400 index. So the Nifty might go to 4,400 if India does not cut taxes and if Trump starts a war in the Middle East. Now that is the bad part. Now listen to the good part. Trump is a very business friendly person. Okay? So if US keeps doing well and US demand increases, the entire global demand increases also because it's a 20 trillion economy. Okay? So if Trump does well and US does well, we might see the market again booming. And if Arun Jaitley and Narendra Modi decides that we have to cut the taxes because this is a great time. If taxes are cut, we will see the formal economy growing in a very, very big way. So if the formal economy will grow and Trump does well, we will see the markets touching new highs. So we have a two scenario. 20th January Trump is coming. 1st February we have a budget. So we have to wait before we decide the trend for 2017. Okay. So right now nobody can decide the trend for 2017 right now. So that can only be decided later. So please be aware of that. Okay. Next question. Are the same shares are listed on your site? Yes, the same shares are also listed on dynamic-levels.com. What about realty sector, metals of Vedanta, Hindalco Steel? See, Vedanta is related to copper. So copper prices are going up, Vedanta is also going up. Because the aluminum prices are going up, Hindalco is also going up because it's that is their finished good. So both shares are doing very well. So if the metals prices keep going up, you will see an upside of these two shares also. But personally, I feel the bull run seen in the metal prices in 2016, I don't see much in Vedanta and Hindalco for 2017. Mr. Raj. Next question. Sir, I invest in versus at what I do. It's a very difficult question. View on MCX and NSE IPO. It's good. You can invest in NSE IPO. It's a great company. But we have to check once it starts showing its profitability and we have to check how it performs. Sir, what about tea sector? Kaun sa share apna tea sector mein food mein? Please just answer your question, Mr. Udit. We have 3 minutes left. Kushal Trading, we don't know, Mr. Nishant. Let's see. We don't have the research right now. We'll answer later. Kushal Trading, is it listed in NSE? I don't know. We'll answer it separately. Please send us a mail. We'll answer separately. Kushal Trading, likh le, just answer it.
Kushal Trading.
Yeah, we'll answer it, Mr. Nishant. Sir, your view on Kirloskar Electric. Kirloskar Electric, dekh padafat.
Dhancheri tea. Category 1 mein hai. It is a good company.
Okay, tea industry, Dhanseri tea is doing very well.
60% in budget.
Okay, and give me shares now first. Dhanseri tea.
Dhanseri tea, then we have Tata Coffee also.
Dhanseri tea, Tata Coffee.
Grop tea.
Grop tea, what is the spelling?
GROBTEA.
Grop tea, GROBTEA. So these are shares also, but the tea industry has not been a performing sector. So we track a less until unless it performed, but these are good shares where you can think about tea industry. There are better sectors than tea right now. Kirloskar Electric channel. Can you suggest any of your favorite sectors? As I said, sugar, chemicals still doing very, very well. Mr. Shishant, you have asked the question for Kushal Trading many times. Just wait, send us a mail, we'll give you. We don't have the research right now ready. Please let us know what big IT scripts like Info. I told you, Donald Trump makes a mistake, you will see big downfall in Info and TCS. You have to wait for a month, Mr. Hiren Kumar, and work on what does Donald Trump does for the visas and the industry. Whenever there is a change of precedent in the US, be very, very careful. Okay? Okay, please send all your questions and support. We have many questions. Rana Sugar and Dhampur, we have given Mr. Amit. According to us, Dhampur is a good share. Rana Sugar is not in our list, so please don't invest in that share. We have other sugar shares better than that. Shilpi Cables. It's very difficult to answer which section of a website has update on performing sectors. Which section? Okay, go to Multibaggers, you will know Mr. Deepak Yadav. Which sectors are likely to gain from this year's budget? Very difficult to say, Mr. Aditya, because it is a new thinking because of demonetization. Okay, Astra Micro, it's BSE. We don't study, Mr. Nishan, we don't study BSE stocks. Okay, so thank you very much. Next week, we are going to train you how to trade Nifty and Bank Nifty. Okay, please send your questions to support@dynamiclevels.com. Okay, so we'll close the session. Thank you very much for your time and presence. I hope you liked the session. If you liked it, please say yes. So we'll be happy. If you liked the session, did you learn something? So if you say, thank you so much, everybody. Okay, so next week we'll teach you about Nifty and Bank Nifty. Thank you.